Welcome and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. And today I am delighted to speak with Tom DiNapoli, the 54th Comptroller of the state of New York. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Lynn, I'm glad I could be here. I apologize, I'm getting off of laryngitis, so I don't have my usual strong voice, but it's good enough. And I know we had gone back and forth on a date, and I appreciate you and Dan arranging for me to have this conversation with you.
Well, thank you for being really willing to do it, and you sound great to me.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about your career, education, and how you got to be where you are today. So take me back to your earlier days. Did you know what you wanted to do?
You know, I always wanted to be a teacher. For years, I wanted to be a high school social studies teacher because, you know, for me, I went to public school in Long Island, and I loved all my teachers, but my social studies teachers especially inspired me, and I always loved history. And I like to talk, and I like to help people. And I think teaching is a very honorable profession, sometimes underappreciated. But as life takes different journeys, right? I ended up never being a high school social studies teacher, and instead ended up first in a corporate position, but always wanted to do government and politics. You know, we could talk more.
Yes,
about
I'd like to hear about that because I know there was some history in the making. You were the youngest person in New York State history to be elected to public service.
Right.
How did that happen?
First 18-year-old, yeah. Well, I mean, so there I was growing up on Long Island, Nassau County, in a good neighborhood, conservative neighborhood, good Republican family. And I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, my teen years. You know, and as your audience could remember, there was a lot going on then. All the different movements and causes, civil rights, women's movement, environment movement, what was called the gay liberation movement then, farm worker rights, and the big issue was the Vietnam War. And many of us then felt strongly, since at age 18 you could be drafted and go to fight in a war that was very unpopular and could be killed, yet you had no voice in our nation's priorities. So many of us pushed for the vote to be lowered from the age of voting from 21 to 18, and that change happened. So the year that you could vote, 18, was the year I was a senior in high school. So I registered to vote as a Democrat.
We'll talk about that a little bit too.
My parents weren't too thrilled about that, but I was also very active in school affairs. I actually was president of my high school. I was, that kind of kid. And I went to school board meetings. On Long Island, we elect boards of education, trustees to run the schools. And I didn't like some of the things that were going on. And a bunch of us got together and we said, we need to back somebody to serve on the school board that'll represent the interests of the students and the young people. And since I had decided I was going to stay home for college and commute to Hofstra University, they said, why don't you do it? And I said, I'll do it. It'll stir up interest. More people will vote. Well, Lynn, that campaign we took very seriously. Knocked literally on every door in the school district. Myself and about 70 of my classmates in high school, Mineola High School, and lo and behold, when the votes were counted, this is an interesting thing because you're into politics. My very first vote ever, I voted for myself. How many people could say that?
Not many.
And by the end of the night, they opened the machines back in the old days, right? The machines, and I won, which was a remarkable opportunity for community service because school board is not, Democrat or Republican, but also for me was a validation of the importance for young people, especially then when there was so much, controversy, to work within the system. the system had opened up to us. We were allowed to vote and participate at age 18. And I, a lot of people were like dropping out of the system. I was always one that said, let's work within the system. And that, I think, gave me the impetus that's been with me all my life to say, whether you win a battle or lose a battle in politics, the opportunity to contribute, to make a difference, for me through electoral politics, is always there. And I've always had an ultimate faith, no matter what happens with certain elections, that the public is going to, most of the time, make the right choice. And I've been fortunate that, for me, not in every race that I've run in, but most of them I have been privileged to have won the elections and have the confidence of the voters.
Well deserved. So how was it for your family when you decided how to vote? How did that go?
Well, my parents were, they were Republican, but they were not like, they would take us into the voting booth when we were kids.
Oh, that's fun.
Right? To learn.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And they'd always show me the sample ballot. And although they were Republican, there were always one or two Democrats they voted for.
Oh.
So they were ticket splitters, I guess we call them today. So they always said, you vote for the person, but they liked the Republican Party. The voices that resonated in my heart, were the Kennedys. I remember when John Kennedy was assassinated. I was a kid, but I remember it. And Bobby Kennedy, when he ran for president, Lynn, I think this world would have been so much a better place if Bobby Kennedy lived and won. But Martin Luther King, you go down the list, not that he was a partisan, but I felt the Democratic Party was the party more open to those kinds of ideas and values. And I've never regretted, that choice. The Democratic Party has always been, I think, a place of, it's our strength. It could be our weakness too, where there's openness to all opinions. The Republican Party tends to be a bit more lockstep. I mean, locally in Nassau County, certainly, but I think nationally also. So although as Democrats sometimes we get too divided, and now we have this issue of, left, far left, progressive, moderate, all these labels, at least I feel we're a party open to debate. And that openness to me, I think, is very important.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
yes,
it
comes from. Yes, I was going to say it comes from here.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
So let's go back. You were the youngest person, and then you went to college.
Right.
I think people would be interested to hear how you started your career.
Well, so you're taking me back. So here I was. I turned 18 in February, senior in high school, because I was elected when I was still in high school. I got elected on May 3rd. And 1972, I'll give you my age. And I graduated in June and then sworn in July 1st. And I went to Hofstra. I studied history as a major, wanting to be a social studies teacher. I did all my education credits, but student teaching, because I had an epiphany and I said, maybe I don't want to be a teacher. My father wanted me to go to law school. I really didn't want to do that, so I didn't. I dabbled in Democratic politics for a bit. That's how I met our mutual dear friend, Lee Seaman, back in the early 70s. She was Democratic leader, as she still is, in the Great Neck area. And I actually ran for town office, town council, unsuccessful, when I was in college. And the long and the short, I finished my 10 years on the school board. But I needed to make money. So I ended up working at AT&T, little telecommunications company. But I knew I always wanted to do politics full time. So I started going to night school here in the city because I was working in Manhattan at Columbus Circle, the old Columbus Circle building. And I went to the new school. I got my degree, master's degree in management, and was really settling into a expected corporate career. I specialized in labor relations and human resources. So I was active politically, but kind of figuring Democrat, Nassau County, probably can't win. Well, lo and behold, an unexpected opportunity happened. The Assemblywoman, May Newberg, who was a legendary figure in our community, decided not to run again. Kind of out of the blue. She decided to retire. Although it's interesting, she retired from the Assembly, and she ended up running for town supervisor and served with distinction. But the seat opened up. So I, threw my hat in the ring, as they say. It was a very competitive convention. About 15 of us wanted the nomination. And I was fortunate that I got chosen. There was no primary. It was a tough first race, but I was elected to the Assembly in 1986. And I said goodbye to the corporate career, took a pay cut, and ended up running 11 times for the state assembly. So I had a good run in the legislature, I'm very proud to say.
Well, a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what happened?
Well, I always felt I wanted to do something else in government, in politics. Every now and then, someone would suggest work in the private sector. I said, I love public service. And I had tried in 2001 to run for county executive. It was unsuccessful. I lost in a primary. The primary was on September 11th, 2001. You remember that?
Yes.
We all do.
Goodness.
A lot of things turned upside down. So anyway, I didn't have that opportunity. So I was back in the Assembly. I chaired the Environment Committee, enjoyed it. And another unexpected opportunity. The state controller at the time ran into some legal trouble, unfortunately, and he had just been reelected despite the legal troubles, but he had to resign before his term of office started, his new term. And under the state constitution, when there's a vacancy in the office of Comptroller or Attorney General, the state legislature appoints the replacement. Now, again, keep in mind that I had been in the Assembly for 2 decades at that point. So I knew a lot of the senators and Assembly members. So I said, you know what? Throw my hat in the ring.
Very good.
And I reached out, and there was an interview process, and it was a fight. The governor at the time did not want a legislator to be the controller, so it was a little contentious between the governor at the time and the legislature. But I had a bipartisan support, and I was chosen. And it was a challenging beginning because a lot of people weren't sure who was this guy. He was in the Assembly. We didn't know he wasn't elected. But we set about to do some reforms in the office. I'm always mindful. My predecessor ended up going to jail, as you recall. And so having a sense of not only getting good results with the important financial work that we do, but doing our work with a sense of transparency, ethics, integrity, accountability, that I've really tried to set as my brand.
And you've done a very good job.
Well, the people so far continue to have confidence in me, so I'd like to think that that my team and I have been doing a good job together. So I try to be even-handed, and I try very hard, to find common ground. Look, I have strong opinions.
I'm sure.
On any number of issues, but I don't feel my interest in advancing my opinions are better than anybody else's interests. And we should be striving for more openness, bipartisanship, collaboration. It may sound anachronistic and old-fashioned, but I think that's what made America strong. And I think the fact that we've moved away from that has been a big negative. And I'm very worried, given what happened this year with the national elections. The political environment is too charged, too divisive, too angry, too us versus them. And especially as a Democrat, we're kind of on the outs now. I hope that we're not closed out of everything. I hope there'll be a dialogue on these complex issues. You need both sides at the table. You
Absolutely.
Really do.
To get anything done.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what would you say your best part of your job is?
I think the part of the job that I guess I cherish the most is looking out for the retirement security of the 1.2 million New Yorkers who are part of the New York State retirement system. I serve as the sole trustee, the sole fiduciary for the state pension fund. It's a big responsibility.
Certainly.
But we are the best funded of all the state plans, and I know that our retirees can rest easy that we are keeping the plan well funded. So I get satisfaction when I meet a retiree out there and they say, I feel safe and secure because I know I'm going to get my pension check every month. That gives me the greatest satisfaction.
Well, that was my next question. What's the most important issue for you? So we'll get it. Well, but that's the one you take the pride.
Yeah, but,
yes.
But we do so many other things. The audits that we do of state agencies, some city agencies, local governments. That's how you help government be more efficient. Look out for the taxpayer. Sometimes we find wrongdoing, and we work with law enforcement. We hold people accountable. That's a very big part of our responsibility. Even with the pension fund, it's not just investing, but we engage corporations to be good corporate citizens on how they treat their employees, how they deal with climate change. So that notion of shareholder activism we take very seriously. We administer the college savings plan for New Yorkers, the ABLE program to help disabled New Yorkers have financial security. Our operations division make sure state employees get paid, SUNY employees get paid, sub-CUNY employees. Make sure that the vendors, the nonprofits that get grants from the state, that they get their payments. So keeping the state running. A lot of our stuff may not be visible, but we're very much part of the operations of state government and keeping New York moving forward. So I very much enjoy the variety of the jobs that I always say, look, people don't know what the Comptroller does. I know what we do, and I know it's important, but I really feel that I have the best job in state government, even if most people don't know what it is we do.
Well, that's a great statement. Now, let's talk a little bit about your personal challenges.
Yeah.
Would you say personal challenges in the work you do that you'd feel comfortable sharing?
Personal challenge. I mean, I wish there were more hours in a day. I think I do pretty well with time management, but I think one of the difficulties is most of my team are in Albany, so I really have to be in Albany. I'm an in-person person.
Yes. You don't. You don't go for this.
I mean, you do Zoom when you have to.
Right.
So I'm in Albany a couple days a week. We obviously have an office in New York City. I like to travel the state. So, getting your work done when you're moving around so much, that's a challenge.
Well, didn't technology help that?
It helps, but also people want you at all kinds of events. I can't be at two places at once. So figuring out how to set priorities, how to get people to understand you can't be at every single event or opportunity. And, frankly, Lynn, what sacrifices a lot, and I try to keep some balance there, is time with family and close friends.
Absolutely.
But, it's been my life. I'm single, I'm not married, I have no children. So, for better or for worse, I have a little more flexibility perhaps than others. As I get older, I've said this before, especially like if I get an honor, if I get a plaque or something. When you're younger, you think it's all about how wonderful you are. As you get older, you realize it's more about how you were raised. What values did your parents place in you? And there are many times my mother's been gone for over 30 years. My mother died relatively young. But I always have her voice. You know better than anybody else. Don't get a swelled head. Don't think you're so terrific. And I think that grounding, from the way I was raised, has served me well. Again, I'm not better than anybody else, but I feel I was given just some basic values of even you see all the people in government that get in trouble lately all the time, and not even lately, all the time. I was raised on basic right and wrong questions. The golden rule, it's not so complicated. I wonder why some people get so caught up in cutting corners, in lining their pockets. I wasn't raised that way.
Well, you remember, a lot of people, they go into the world and they forget.
Yes. But I got my mother's.
Oh,
my
good,
mother
good,
whispering
good.
in my ear.
She was a good mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I had a lot of good role models along the way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful because I was going to say, for people, let's say younger, or someone wants to make a transition into related work that you do you have any advice or anything to share?
Well, I'd say first of all, be optimistic. You know, a lot of times younger people or even older people that are breaking in, they get intimidated, or someone isn't as encouraging or welcoming to them if they go to a meeting or whatever, and then they back off. So you know what? You got to be a little persistent and be optimistic. And it's about people connections. You know, if you want to be involved in politics, you want to run for office, as an example, start by helping somebody else. Get involved with a political club.
That's the best.
And certainly here in the city, as you well know, you have all these opportunities with clubs. People, first of all, I'll even backtrack even more. A lot of young people are independent. They don't want to be in a political party. And then they come and they want to run for it. You got to be in a political party. That's our system. Make your choice, and then be involved. Join a club. Be a committee person. Help another candidate. I have found the access to the system is not as complicated as people sometimes. It just isn't. You have to have the initiative. Take the step forward. Make those connections. Are you going to like everybody? No. Is everybody going to like you? No. Is every opportunity you're going to want work out? No. But know who you are. Not only be involved with an organization, with candidates, but have your beliefs. What do you believe in? If you want to run for office, don't just run because you think it's a popularity contest. What do you want to do to make your community better? And politics is a great way to do that. And you don't have to run for office. If you're active in a club, if you're a committee person, or if you're involved in a nonprofit, doesn't have to be a political group. There are so many ways you could make your community better. And being involved with community groups, I should mention, is another pathway to the government side. I served on a board of directors for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Long Island. I was president of the board. But right before I was elected to the assembly, that school board experience and being involved with a nonprofit like Big Brothers, that's really what helped me network, have people get to know me, have people see my leadership potential. You got to show your stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And it's easy access.
Yes.
You can't knock on the door of a financial institution and say, I'd like to get involved here without working there.
Absolutely. And not be intimidated. Not every door you knock on is going to open or be so friendly. So knock on another door. That's all.
That's the best advice you can give someone. Because, you put so much into that first door you knock on, and if it doesn't work out, you got to go to the next one.
As we said earlier, I was lucky. My first office I ran for, I won. I didn't win every race since then. I've won most of them, but not all of them. But even when you have a loss, from my experience, you learn. You meet new people. Some of my closest friends and closest political allies are people I met in campaigns where we lost, whether I lost or we're working for somebody else that lost. But you forge relationships, you make connections, and you find some people may not be with you in one fight, they're with you in the next one. So,
Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
What wonderful advice.
Yeah.
This is
nothing special.
Well,
common sense, as they say. Common
right,
sense.
but common sense is not always common.
Right.
So where are you now? What are you focusing in on? What are your priorities?
I would say the biggest priority overall, what we're trying to do in our shop is, with our reports, our audits, our analysis, continue to provide information, suggestions, recommendations. Again, we don't make law, to help New York continue, because the recovery is not done, the recovery coming out of the COVID experience. It really was devastating personally to many people, obviously from a health perspective, but economically, impact on government services. We're not back to 100%. You look at the MTA, has been a big issue, right? Funding for the MTA. The number of people that have issues of food insecurity, inadequate access to quality housing that's affordable. We've been doing a lot of reports and audits and analysis on these issues to try to elevate the conversation. So I think if we could be helpful to getting New York back to where we were and beyond, that to me, to use the various levers that we have, our various responsibilities, that to me is our broad focus right now.
And hopefully that priority will shift,
Yes.
because when you get to that place.
Yes, and New York is getting there. People count New York out, never count New York out. We have our challenges, but we're gonna get through this challenging time. And I want the Comptroller's office to be helpful to New York City and to all of New York State in getting us to a better place, and I think we can.
Well, thank you for that. Now, in our last few seconds here, anything you didn't get to say today?
Well, we said a lot. I would just say, Lynn, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate using this medium of television and Manhattan Neighborhood Network and public access. People need to be connected and need to have information. You're helping to provide dialogue and information. There's not enough of that going on, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with you.
And I appreciate it, and all our viewers will appreciate this, because there was some gems shared. So thank you for sharing the afternoon with me.
Thank you.
And that's all I can say. Thank you.
And my voice held up.
I did, and it got better.